Well, Chris, welcome to 50 Chairs. You have heard the story of kind of the founding of 50 Chairs and my dad's story around his church and kind of just seeing that vision before the chairs were actually filled. And from the outside, there are people that told him, hey, you need to have 25 chairs instead of 50. And my dad insisted on having those 50. But as I was thinking about that story and hearing all the news about Elon Musk talking about data centers on the moon and, Jeff Bezos talking about, and I was like, Chris has been talking about this. He is like that true 50 chairs moment where he's been talking about this, not just, when I heard about it 3 years ago, but as I was getting prepped for the research on this, sounds like this dates back to like 2017, this idea of putting data centers on the moon. So I could not be more excited to talk about this today with you because everyone is waking up to this idea that putting data centers on the moon is such a novel concept. And, you've got a lot of press around this, but I was like, Chris Stott and Lone Star Lunar have been thinking about this for a long, long time. So happy to have you here today to talk about this. Chris Stott, CEO of Lone Star Lunar. Thank you for coming on.
Well, Gary, thank you for having me. An honor to be here today. Really looking forward to it. I don't get to do this kind of thing much. And so this is fun. And it's great to see you. And I love the 50 chairs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You know, when you tell someone, I was sitting across the table from you. I remember, I think we were at a rooftop somewhere in St. Pete. It was, I think, me, you, and Chris. And I didn't know anything about Lone Star and kind of, I was my first time meeting you. And you're like, yeah, we're going to put data centers on the moon. And I remember thinking to myself, this man is either like genius or crazy.
There's a fine line, right? There's a definite fine line in there somewhere.
And then, you kind of went through all the rationale, and the more I got to know you and obviously got to know your team and what you guys were executing on, and then having gone to the launch 2 years later where you were putting a data center on the moon, just what an amazing journey. But what was it? Like, what's that moment that you were like, this just makes sense. There needs to be data centers on the moon.
Right. I was talking to customers, and a bunch of customers came to us and said, help. We need help. We're in pain. We can't find anywhere down here on Earth to store our data safely. And I was like, well, that can't be right. And they, no. All this data sovereignty laws, you have to keep the data in the country where it's made because it's so valuable. And then with the hacking of the cable fibers and storms and all of these different things, right? There was nowhere in the world that was the best place to do it. And so I'm like, so why are you talking to me? And they said, you're something to do with space, right? And I'm like, yes. And they said, find us a solution. I'm like, absolutely. So we started looking. And we started looking at all these different options underwater, but it's cable fiber, it's flagging issues and maritime law. It's not really safe. We've been tapping cable fiber all the way through things on land, but the wrong country and power issues and infrastructure issues. I'm like, wow. So we were looking at all of this. Look, and because you mentioned your dad's church, this is something that is worth talking about. I've always been in faith my whole life. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my faith, literally. And I had a health issue and I was going under the knife. And I remember I said to the surgeons, I said, stop. And they all looked at me funny. And I'm like, number one, thank you. No matter what happens, I know I'm being recorded, but no matter what happens, thank you. I've had a great life and I'm in your hands. And then I did a Hail Mary and Our Father. And I said to our Lord, if you want me to do this moon thing, wake me up. And the moment I woke up, I was like, yes, Lord. And I was like, okay, boom, game on, let's go. And so I changed. I got a CEO at my other company that I'd founded, and it was just going great. And I should have done that a long time ago. And just started with Lone Star. Wow. And since then, it was the vision, always the key vision to do this for the right reasons. And helping customers, helping solve a problem. And you're right, everyone I talked to was like, you're completely mad. Like data centers in space, number one, but data centers on the moon. And as Nicole, my wife, it's amazing. She said, right, the moon is such a perfect place to do this. If it wasn't there, we'd have to build it.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, as we said, after we've been doing all of this, and we're doing more in orbit now as well. Our next ones go up in October, fully commercially operational in October.
Wow.
Right. But as we've done it, we went from being, how crazy are you? To what are you doing? To, wait a minute, you've done this 4 times now, 2 to the moon and 2 to the space station, and it worked, and we've got customers. And I'm like, yeah, what else? And
Yeah.
then the next one's going up, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, every single major billionaire on the planet just seemed to wake up to this whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, it's just logic,
Yeah.
market logic, right? But we can talk about that. I mean, I'm off on rabbit holes already, so go for it.
No, I mean, that was what made me think of it, because I've never been, you hear about these stories of like someone having this crazy idea, whatever it is, electric car company. What it's like so absurd at the time, and then you fast forward and it seems obvious right now. And I feel like, but I've never been close, really close to someone that's going through that process, except for
Well, except for
watching.
you. You've done loads of cool things too, mate. Don't downsell yourself, Gary. I'm like,
Well,
you've
yeah,
done a lot of really
you're
cool
right.
things like
You're right.
that.
Beyond my own personal journey, but then it's like, okay, I'm the crazy one.
We're all crazy, right? Yeah.
But watching you go through that and then seeing these headlines where it now seems obvious to everyone that this is a great idea, but it wasn't so obvious many years ago that this was a great idea, and that you had the technical know-how to actually pull this off. I love that comment that you listen to your customers, because I feel like one of the things that as an entrepreneur, as you start to scale your company and get bigger, sometimes you lose sight of listening to your customers. So I love that it started with like, hey, there was a problem that we were hearing, and then we went out and tried to find a solution to that problem, and happened to be that space and the moon was the right place for this. So yeah, I love that part of the journey for you. What was the background with, it was Mansat in, and I was reading the kind of the backdrop on that. Was that you and your father had started that company together? Is that right?
Actually, yeah, it was myself. And then I asked
Okay.
my dad to come in and give me some gray hair top cover,
Okay.
which was awesome. Because so what Mansat is now called River Advisors. What Mansat is the world's largest commercial provider of satellite spectrum. So this was a moment at grad school when I was like, wait a minute. All these other countries are going after these orbital slots in space, and you have to be a country. What about my old country, the Isle of Man? We could do this.
Yeah.
And it was like a literal white flash in my head when it went off. And then when I was working at McDonnell Douglas, I would talk to Boeing, talk to the people selling rockets to. I said, why are you ready to buy my rocket, my Delta II? It's only $50 odd million in those days for 8.5 minutes of work. I said, come on, let's do it. And they'd be like, well, I don't have my satellite picked and I don't have the money. And I'm like, well, what's holding you up? Well, access to the spectrum. Well, why? Oh, it's an incredibly Byzantine complex, whatever. And I'm like, shouldn't be, because it's an international process. It's a treaty. And then when I was at Lockheed, same thing, spectrum issues all the time. So I quit. I quit in July 2000 and was like, wait a minute, this is kind of scary, because I was an executive at Lockheed. Everyone was screaming at me, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You've been an executive at the 2 big then space companies. You're quitting to go to a startup? What's a startup? No one knew what that was in 2000, right? 26 years ago.
Yeah.
There was no infrastructure. There was nothing around. There were barely VCs.
Yeah.
No one was looking at space. So I raised some money, did this. But again, it was listening to the customers. And I always remember going in, and that first meeting I had with them, became still, by the way, we've never lost a customer. Knock on wood.
Wow.
You listen to customers. You always listen to your customers and you fulfill their needs, right? 26 years later, so all these satellites flying around the world, we look after every single top 10 satellite company in the world, right? And I had to convince them to come in. You go see these guys, and they were awesome. I remember seeing the first customer, and you'd walk in and they say, well, okay, who are you? Why have we got in the meeting today? I said, oh, my name's Chris. I'm all of, what was I then? 28. Right? Hence, Dad was great, because Dad was chairman of a couple of banks, and I needed some gray-haired old men to come in behind me occasionally, just to make it look like. Exactly. No, Dad was great on that. He was brilliant. He played his part in a beautiful way on that. He was so cool. And because he was looking after his son too, right? He's like, what are you doing? What do you mean you've just left Lockheed Martin as a senior executive? What have you done? What's this startup thing? What are you doing? Yeah, Mum was like, keep an eye on it. Just make sure he's all right. Yeah. And so, but going in there and saying to someone, look, and this was a Fortune 50 company, not 500, 50, and sitting down with their CEO and general counsel and saying to them, look, I know you've used a government to get all of your spectrum licenses for your entire life of your existence as a company. You're one of the biggest in the world. And I know that I'm a startup, barely capitalized, but I'm coming in saying, hey, bet your career, your stock price, your customers, in fact, your entire business on me. And I'll put together a team and I'll make it happen.
What
Right?
do you think?
What do you think? Bum, 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 right? And because I was listening to them on their needs, I wasn't pushing a product. I was just saying, tell me what you need. I know you have a problem because we've known each other because I used to sell rockets to them. And I'm like, I know you have. So there's a bit of trust between us.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I know you have a problem. And they said, well, okay, let's take a chance. Let's roll some dice.
Wow.
And boom, they said yes. And I was like, holy smokes. They said yes. I'm like, thank you, Lord. And from that one moment, but that was the biggest thing. So when I was at Boeing, they put us through sales training at the Boeing Commercial Aircraft Group, BCAT. And we were the space guys, right? We were set up there for that training, and it was amazing training. And they said, you've got one mouth and two ears for a reason, right? And so you go into pitch, buy my Boeing jet, buy my Boeing rocket, buy my Boeing anything.
Yeah.
And Boeing at that time, we were running $52 billion a year in annual revenues. So that means we had to sell $1 billion
with a B.
a week.
Yeah.
With a B.
Wow.
We had to sell $1 billion a week just to keep up with last year's numbers.
Wow.
So the sales training was superb. And it was all about, they said, look, you go in and you say to someone, and this is for the listeners today. I mean, please take this to heart. You go in to pitch whatever it is you're pitching, and the person says no. What happens next is the most crucial 3 to 4 seconds of the deal flow. Because most human beings, all human beings, really don't like to say no. It's ingrained in us. You don't like to disappoint someone. I'm sorry, no, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And they feel really bad. So if you go, no, and you shut these two things down, after this thing's been working, you shut these things down.
Yeah.
You've got your, transmit and receive. Then the crucial moment, and this is what we were taught, you say, well, what do you need? Oh my gosh. And then they tell you because they're so relieved to go, oh, I can at least tell this poor person that this is what I do need.
Yeah.
And then you go, and then you sit and you think for a second, and you go, I can do that. Or we can do that. Actually, if I flip the product this way or this way, oh my gosh, we can do that. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you can do this. And you're off to the races.
Wow.
That's
crucial.
I always remember that was July 2000, July 23rd, 2000, sitting up in Bedminster, New Jersey in this incredible satellite company's offices. Just going, I can't believe they're still meeting with me. And they said, yeah, right. Now, it took a year to get to contract.
Yeah.
That's knowing big corporations don't move. Even if they say yes, there's still a process. And you've got to be ready for that.
Yep.
But oh my gosh, that's when I called my father. I'm like, hey, Dad, I might need some talk. And then Dad was great because then he had been chairman of a bank and the bank was going through some M&A. And the chief executive of that bank, a gentleman called Ian Jarrett, who was a superb banker, ran Fleet Bank in New York, ran NatWest Securities in London, trained in banking for 30 years, was retiring at the age of 50. And I'm like, and I'm actually older now than he was when he joined me.
Yeah.
And so he became my CFO. So I would walk in the room and he would instantly go pow, 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 pow on all the financial stuff. And then we'd have fantastic accountants, KPMG and the others who would fly over to meet with these Fortune 500 companies. And they would walk in the room and go, yeah, well, here with the young little lad over here in the corner. But by the way, let's look at making your efficient, your structure, your corporate tax structure efficient. Let's look at your banking flow. Let's look at this. And then they would go, because they were going to win business too. They would go and they would speak a language. Like I remember being in the room with these incredible partners, a guy called Dave McGarry and Greg Jones in Manhattan. They come in from the Isle of Man and they were sitting with the CFO of this massive corporation. And they were talking a language I didn't understand. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to stay quiet and smile a lot. Literally, I went through my head, I'm not going to say a word. And I looked over at my CFO and he's like going, I have no idea what they're talking about. Well, he ran like global banks. He's like, I have no idea. But the smile on the CFO's face of the big major corporate, the Fortune 50, was incredible. And I go, that then goes back down to, you need an incredibly diverse team of experts who are way better than you at what they do. And you just say, look, tag, you're it. And then we let them do their thing. They have a clear goal. As General Patton used to say, take the bridge. And the young lieutenant will go, how? And he says, I don't know. That's what I got you for. Right? I mean, that's the whole point of having good teams and giving them delegation and giving them resources and letting people do their thing and come up with solutions, which then gives them self-confidence. And so one day they'll be a manager and able to flow that back down. It's really good management practice.
So
we went deep there, didn't we? That was like way into like deep management stuff.
No, but I mean,
terrifying.
That's pieces of the puzzle, right? It's like you have this idea pops in your head. You're like, hey, I heard this problem over and over again in the work that I was doing. So you got some experience, some domain expertise. Leave that very secure, safe, probably promotable. Sounds like you're very young.
Yeah,
There was
I was doing well to be at that level.
all
I was very
right
lucky.
to go pursue this, but then to build a team around that. You're young. You got dad coming in,
Mhm.
kind of giving you a cover as the gray haired guy, adult in the room. How did you attract KPMG and the CFO to say, look, I've got a great idea, but I need other people that can help me execute. And I want you on my team.
That's exactly what I just did.
Just that, huh?
I said, here's the business plan, and here is what we're trying to do, and you are way better than anyone I've ever met at this. I would love for you to please join my team. And they said yes.
Now, did you
Right?
know them prior? Like, did they know of Chris
Kind
Stott?
of, not really, no.
No.
Not really, no. I mean, they might have seen me at a cocktail event or something, but no, not at all. I
Okay.
spent more time with my CFO, who was my CFO for 20 years. I spent more time with Ian in that first 5 minutes of going into the bank to see him, to interview him, to ask him to join us.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
same thing with KPMG. They didn't know me from Adam.
And they just believed the vision, saw
Mhm.
how you were going to execute, and said, "Yeah,
Yeah,
we're in. Let's go."
yeah. And a great law firm called Keynes on the Isle of Man, the oldest, most distinguished law firm on the island. An island full of law firms. They were fantastic too. They instantly saw it. They saw the opportunity. And no, they were really good. All of them were good. The banks were good. Everyone was fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So you learned a lot. I'm assuming over 20 years building satellite companies. What was I saw you do an interview and you were talking about the logistics of international sovereignty that space kind of has solved, but that learning would not have come without having been in that industry for such for basically establishing that industry. What were the learnings as you went through that have now kind of transformed into Lone Star? It's like, oh, well, this is the next step. But I knew this because I've been dealing with satellites for, the better part of 20 years.
Well, no, thank you. This is really good questions. No one ever asked me this stuff. This is really cool. Well, and you look back at life and you wonder, okay, I'm like, yeah, I'm faith. And I'm like, okay, Lord, why did you put me in that situation? What was I learning there?
Yeah.
And I found myself just every time I go somewhere, whether it be McDonnell Douglas and Boeing or Lockheed, hey, kid, there's a problem. Go fix it. And I'm like, okay, cool, but awesome, because I did my master's degree in space science and space law. I know, smell my own farts. I love that. So I like, wait a minute. It's like one of the first things I did when I was at McDonnell Douglas was we had an issue at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and we were importing and exporting satellites, and we were getting dinged by customs every time we'd import these hundreds of millions of dollars of satellites and then export them on the rocket.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen at Cape Canaveral or French Guiana or any of these other places. And we needed a foreign trade zone put in place. That's a regulatory issue. So I was in sales, but it was a regulatory. I had my master's, and they were like, "You're foreign, you do it." And I was like, "Oh crap, okay, here we go." But I learned so much about working with Congress, about working with the state, about getting it done, about the regulatory, and then same thing working with the customers. Or what's the number one thing that's stopping you from doing what you want to do? Regulatory. And space and satellite, and then sovereignty and launch licensing and everything else. And when I was at Lockheed, we were running every single telecommunications asset for NASA. It was a consolidated space operations contract, a $10 billion contract.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, was there regulation on spectrum and access and sovereignty on that. And then again, doing the work with Mansat and our customers and clients there, we put up the first condominium satellites where you have 3 or 4 governments all licensing equipment on the same satellite. But
Yeah.
each part of the satellite is licensed to a different government in a different legal format. And we were the first people to do it on the Isle of Man through Mansat, because we
Yeah.
were the first people crazy enough to go, okay, let's try.
So
That's
let
really
me
cool. It's like share spectrum and do all these things. And it's like, wow. So it all came
so
together.
to kind of just put this in perspective
Yeah.
for myself, but maybe for the audience, you've got this satellite that
Mhm.
is technology wise, it's all together in the physical space with different governments that may or may not like each other or want.
They do tend to like each other. It's good. It's all there. Oh no, this is like team freedom stuff. Yes.
Okay, okay. But they're on there. They're not sharing the data on the satellite, but they are housed on the same physical object. What were the things that like, what did you have to work through to make that to make
Oh gosh, all the licensing regimes, from launch and operations licensing, whose flag. So when we put up these big geosats, geostationary satellites, 22,600 miles up, 36,000 kilometers away, they last for 15 to 20 years up there. They do everything from internet routing to TV broadcasting, weather observation, amazing. But just like a ship on the high seas, in one area, maritime law, and space law is maritime law, you have a flag. A nation takes responsibility from launch and up. I'm responsible for what happens to that object. But then, I mean, these things are the size of a house, which makes the analogy a little easier because there's different rooms in that house that then belong to different countries, all by written agreement, all by different licensing and sovereignty. And it means that, yes, you said, what happens in that data embassy, that hosted payload on board that spacecraft, and of course, they're coming from the Isle of Man, now a very proud American citizen here in Florida and Tampa and St. Pete. But coming from the Isle of Man, which is it's the oldest parliamentary democracy continuous in the world. And we are what's called a crown dependency. We're not part of the United Kingdom, but we're geographically part of the British Isles. We are, in the polite words, a gray zone in diplomacy. Because we have offshore banking, we have all this incredible manufacturing that goes on, huge, but we're the third largest space economy in the world. And we started at Mansat, which we kind of love. All the stuff that kind of grew out of that, right? Organically. With the whole, But the thing is, though, we're very, very good at understanding where we stand on loopholes in international treaties, because that's how we run our entire banking system and everything, legitimately. OECD approved, US Treasury approved, all white label stuff. But you do start to read the rules of the game before you play the game. So every now and then, I get to teach international treaty law.
Yeah.
And to postgraduates and to lawyers and to judges.
Yeah.
And so when I go in the room, my first question to them, because the space law is kind of sexy, right? They want to learn about space law.
Yeah.
A big growing economy. And I'll say to them, right, how many people play Monopoly? And all the hands go up. And I'll say, well, you can't see my hand go up because it's off camera. I'll say, how many people play Monopoly? And the hands go up. And I'll say, okay, well, how many of you read the rules before you played? And maybe one little hand kind of timidly goes up at the back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, see, if you read the rules of the game before you play the game, you've got a much better chance of winning the game.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing about sovereignty in space. It was just knowing those rules from firsthand experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, thank you, Lord, he put me in that path. And so when people came to me and said, well, how do I do data sovereignty? It's happening on the ground. How do I have, and my CTO, Mark Matosian, Dr. Mark Matosian, former head of Google data centers, US CEO of ISI, the synthetic aperture radar company, amazing guy. Mark says it's like being off planet, but in country. And it's like, so unlike a ship in the high seas, you're in space, but your cargo containers on your ship in space can all be flagged as different data embassies. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. But if you understand that work, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. How cool is it? I think most people's understanding of space law might come from the movie The Martian.
Oh, it was a terrible one. Oh my gosh. I need to talk to Mr. Wee. I've got friends who, I'm like, Andy, come on, dude. He's not a space pirate. He's an American astronaut in an American base on an American buggy driving to get picked up. He's under American jurisdiction now, but okay, well, technically, in the Constitution, see, that's why it's good. This is Gary. This is why it's good. How many of your viewers know that it is legal to be a pirate in the United States? I do. It's one of my favorite parts of the US Constitution. It's awesome. Did you know that some of the founding fathers were actual pirates? And it is legal under the Constitution to be a pirate.
It is. Well, I mean, we are in Florida, and I know that we celebrate pirates here.
Yeah. So you can have a letter of marque. Congress or the president can grant you a letter of marque as per the Constitution.
Wow.
And that means the United States government can legally give you permission to be a legal pirate.
And if I remember correctly, pirates played an important role in our formation.
I love that. Our formation. No, very much, right? I mean, the idea that you've got a bunch of private boats and private vessels out there and they need to go win a war, win a revolution. Well, if they got caught being pirates, they got hung. But if they had a letter of marque that says, actually, I'm approved by the government, like being a mercenary. I'm working for the government. Here's my proof.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
hang me.
Very
Please
that'd
don't
be a
hang me.
very, very important piece of paper.
Yes.
So you have all of this experience at Mansad. If I remember correctly, you told me you also spent some time in government.
Hmm.
A lot of people see that, especially in the startup world. Uh, they're not really sure what to think of government and what role government can play in accelerating things. But obviously, space is one of those areas that you absolutely have to work hand in hand with government. What was that transition out of, or was it a transition out of Mansat into that, or was it just kind of like, hey, this is a natural byproduct? I'm having to understand all of this international treaties and
Hmm.
laws and work with governments to get this. This is bigger than just, you know, one person or one company. What was that transition, and then what did you learn from that?
No, thank you. Yeah, I was very fortunate. I mean, was it Robert Hyland said, politics is so important, secondary to your own heartbeat, because you might ignore politics, but politics doesn't ignore you. And in space, your greatest ally, your greatest help is your regulator. And I say this because they're knowledgeable. They do, and science and engineering, diplomacy, they are going to be your greatest ally. Be as transparent as you humanly can with your regulator and ask them for help and do things, and work really closely with your regulator, because space is the most regulated of all human activities. You take every law that we have on the planet and add a whole layer when you go to space.
Wow.
There's tons of law in space because of the velocities involved and superpowers, and that you can have accidents that could trigger things going horribly wrong down here during the Cold War. It's very well regulated. But I
Yeah.
was fortunate. Yeah, you grew up on the Isle of Man, where we have, the oldest continuous parliament in the world. So you have a front seat view into politics, because you know the person who's, it's very small constituencies. You actually know everyone you're working with. Gives you a different view of democracy and participatory democracy and accountability. When I graduated high school, I had a great professor at high school, and I did okay on a national exam. Okay, I came
Yeah.
top and in American politics. And I was then given the opportunity to go work for Senator Paul Sarbanes as an intern, a volunteer intern in those days,
Yeah.
unpaid and all of that, all State Department approved and everything. And I was working for a Democrat senator in Maryland. It was fantastic. Learned so much there. And as I was getting ready to leave, back in those days, he gave a phone call up to then Vice President Bush and said, "Hey, I'm sending this kid over. I vouch for him. You should give him a job." And in those days, politics and favors and stuff. And the next thing you know, I was
Yeah.
working for then Vice President Bush and then for President Bush,
Wow.
and on 2 campaigns. And then 92, when we didn't win, I came back and worked in the British Parliament for a number of years for then Emma Nicholson, MP, and then Baroness Nicholson, and a couple of others, and did some other work in and around the UN afterwards, and aid work and other things, and anti-drug work and health education, but always with a passion for space. But the moment, I always remember, there's a really interesting moment. I was in a gentleman, may he rest in peace, a great guy who worked for then Vice President Bush, a guy called Andrew Carpendale. And I remember walking into his office at the old executive office building, and there was a model of the space shuttle. And I was like, my eyes were like, vroom, vroom. I love space, right? And I was like, what is that? And how'd you have that here? And he goes, oh, I'm on the Space Council. I work, then Vice President was doing this. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I laughed. He goes, oh, no, space is so political. It's all about policy, regulation, and law, and blah, 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 and budgets. And I was like, what? My teachers at school told me, unless I was a genius at math, I couldn't do engineering. So I got kicked out of those classes. You telling me that everything I've learned in life, I can actually now apply to my passion, which is space? And he was like, absolutely. You become the boss of space if you do all the law and policy. And I'm like, oh, right. And off we went. Right. And then it was really cool. And there was just a lot of strange coincidences in life. And so when I was doing my master's degree, NASA came and said, I was at the International Space University in Strasbourg. And it was a guy called Jay Honeycutt, Center Director of NASA, came over to teach us. And he said, look, I want you to come work with us and do a couple of months with us as part of your degree. We're privatizing the space shuttle, and it'd be great to have you there. Come learn how shuttles work, and then help us on this whole privatization from the spaceflight operations contract to the United Space Alliance. Just come be, you're the only kid in this class who has any kind of a policy background. And that's actually what we need right now. So that's how that's where I met my wife. She was an engineer on the program at the time. And
Yeah.
my life, and that was the other thing too. I was supposed to go back and work and run for office and do the whole political thing in the UK.
Yeah.
And just talk to Baroness Nicholson at the moment. She'll tell you all about that. She's still trying to get me to do it. I'm like, Emma, I'm an American citizen now, Emma. I'm free. I'm free. Yeah. Um, but all of a sudden I went, oh my gosh, you mean I'm allowed to follow my passion?
Mm.
Right? Because, you go through school and the teachers tell you what you can do. Teacher can ask a question. Can I go to the bathroom? Can I have a revolution? Just as Ken Robinson talked about in Imagination Schools in the Victorian school system, right? I'm a dyslexic kid. I'm one of those neurodivergent is what they call us.
Yes.
Right. I'm like one of those kids in the back of the room is like we're reading sci-fi and looking out the window going, asking awkward questions of the teacher.
It's a superpower, Chris. It's a
It
superpower.
is. Thank you. Please, everyone, that dyslexia, ADHD, it's not something to be treated. It's something to be relished. You think differently to 99% of the human race and you kick ass doing so. Understand that, especially in this AI-driven world. You are now like back to being Beowulf around the campfire or Odysseus on the trail. I mean, you really are. It's an incredible skill to have, especially in self-organized learning environments, because you can accelerate much faster than others. Anyway, yeah. And so all of a sudden it was that realization that space isn't just engineering. It's not just science. It is policy, law, business, finance, arts, history, the whole gambit of everything we do. And all of a sudden I was like, I have a place in life, and I didn't have to go back and do what everyone else thought was the sensible thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's like, the family were quite happy to pay for Harvard Business School, but I actually paid for myself to go to the Space University. Yeah. but I always remember like taking my late father and my mom, and they came out to see a shuttle launch. And my dad walking around, looking around, he's like looking around at Kennedy Space, and he goes, lad, there's real money here. And I'm like, yeah, I told you. And it was kind of like a nice little rapprochement. And he was like, oh, you aren't completely mad. All those time watching Star Trek, you actually paid off. And I'm like, yeah, see? Yeah. But it's always about the future, right? Change in the future. As Heraclitus said, change is the only constant.
So you went to Space University. I just have to stop there for a second.
Yeah. There is such a place. Yes.
Some people might say, is that a real place? Okay.
Yeah. Been going since 1987, founded by Harvard and MIT.
Okay.
By a gentleman called Dr. Peter Diamandis and a gentleman called Todd Hawley and a gentleman called Bob Richards. And they founded this thing as a postgraduate training school that's sponsored by every single space agency in the world and every single major space corporation in the world. And it's a place that you go and you do cross-training, like a Paris salon. It's interdisciplinary. And so you're learning science, engineering, arts, math, business, policy, law. Oof, right? And so when you come in with a background like mine, and I'm like, what's this calculus thing? I remember the former chief economist at Caltech taking me in the evenings and teaching me calculus just so I could get through his class at the university. Right. Wow. And then, but the next day we'd have the space lawyers come in, and my fellow classmates were amazing. They would be sitting there going, wait a minute, what do you mean there's not an equation for this? I said, no, it's case precedent. This is how it all works. And they were like, what? But that one itself, right? So you learn all the different disciplines, and because it's a whole brain problem space.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's that. Yeah. Oh gosh, it's been going since 87. So almost 40 years next year. The main campus is in Strasbourg, France. It's English speaking though.
Okay.
I mean, it helps to speak French. It's all in English, which is a great benefit. And then they have these programs that go around the world every summer. There's a Southern Hemisphere program because their education system's the reverse of ours. Right? Their summer is our winter, and our winter is their summer. Yes. So how do they attend classes during a summer break? Well, they can't because it's the wrong time. So we have programs down there. Wow. I mean, it's a really, but it's been out. Jessica Meir just docked with the space station. She's one of our graduates.
No way.
Right? And so things like that, right?
Yeah.
It's the largest single alumni base in the global space industry.
That's amazing, man. So I got a chance to meet Jay Honeycutt at your launch, or prior to, actually in the hub in St. Pete when you guys were doing your mission control opening. And I got a little bit of the story. I've got to meet your wife, who is an astronaut for those that you don't know, Nicole Stott. How did that Jay, I think, said that he was responsible for this introduction.
Very, very responsible.
If you don't mind just going there for a second,
sure.
I mean, here's a guy that absolutely loves space, and then he marries an astronaut. I mean, you cannot think of a more perfect fit.
Blessed, absolutely blessed, right? Married my best friend. And so there's Jay. So there I'm doing this master's degree. And the thing about ISU is there's only 5 permanent teaching staff. They run different schools, engineering, science, law. Everyone else that comes to teach is from industry, is from agencies. And so Jay came out to teach as center director. So, you had the boss, head of NASA, the deputy administrator, and then the heads of all these different space centers. And science divisions. But really, the center directors they're pretty big guys. Jay was center director of the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. He was coming out to teach about shuttle operations. And so, yeah, Jay was like, well, come work for me. We need help with this. Absolutely. I met him and his wife. It was awesome. And then, so when I was working for Jay, I was put into shuttle operations to learn it before I could do anything.
Yeah.
And so I remember that at 10:34 in the morning, 4th floor of the Launch Control Center, February 1996. So Nikki and I just had our 30th anniversary of just meeting. And she was an engineer. She was what's called a flow director. She was in charge of the Space Shuttle Discovery. From the moment it landed to the moment it took off, 2.5 million things had to be done in order, correctly, and signed off. She was the person in charge of all of that and signing off and responsible.
Did you
And
say 2.5
so,
million
Mhm.
steps?
Yep. And so a lot of people doing that underneath her and doing all these things, but yeah. And she joined NASA just after the Challenger disaster. They brought in a lot of new younger engineers to try and get a new idea on stuff. And then she was an engineer there. So I remember meeting her, and it was awesome. And I never would have met her if it wasn't for Jay and Peggy.
Yeah.
And then I remember having a conversation with Jay and Peggy, and he's like, have you met anyone nice? I said, yes. And they said, we know. Behave yourself. And I'm like, because they were worried I'd take her away. And no. So I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And then we were married. Within a year. And we've been married ever since. And then when Nicole was doing my work with Boeing, she got transferred to a part of NASA to work on space stations so she could come out with me in California. And then she applied for astronaut in 98, just missed it, but was asked to come and fly jets and the shuttle training aircraft and other jets at NASA. So we moved to Houston. And I retired from Boeing and joined Lockheed.
Yeah.
And then, she was selected as an astronaut in the year 2000. Actually, she was selected. I quit Lockheed at the beginning of July, and then she was selected on the 3rd week of July to be an astronaut, same month.
Wow.
So both of us had like these massive career changes and stuff. So it was awesome.
What was that moment like for her, and as her husband, that she's says, "Hey, I'm going up." I see it in the
So
movie.
proud. Yeah.
It seems like one of those moments that you just never forget. But it must be super exciting. But as a spouse, I'm sure it's got a little bit different flavor to it.
Well, happy, proud, and thrilled.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And the thing is, to go back to Kennedy, and you're always a little nervous because it's whatever, but you're there for your family, you're there for our son
yeah,
and everyone else. But the cool thing is, I was fortunate because I'd worked out there and worked out there since launches and other things, not with shuttle, but on expendable launch vehicles with the satellites. I knew how utterly professional everybody is out there.
yeah,
Knew how much from the guys running the programs down to the people who are doing third shift in maintenance and engineering who drive their Harley Davidson to work,
yeah,
how dedicated they were.
yeah,
And that gave me ultimate comfort. So when others were like really kind of like, I'm like, don't worry. Look, these are incredible people doing an incredible job. And it's like riding to heaven on a pillar of fire.
wow, yeah.
And so I was lucky that way. Now I might have had a couple of drinks, but right. But for me, it felt like going home. It felt like it was I was always meant to be holding my son in my arms doing that, watching my best friend, my wife, launch a couple of times to space.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man. And then how long did she spend in on ISS?
In 4 days.
140
And
days.
spacewalk and all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
capturing robotic vehicles from Japan and doing all these other things. She's like Scotty. She fixes everything up there.
And first watercolor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. First watercolor in space. Yeah. And then she was also an aquanaut. So I think she still holds the women's world record for saturation diving. Well, living underwater, which is fantastic training for space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
two rock star parents. The son is
Oh, my rock star son. The proudest moment I'm so proud of our son. I love him so much.
yeah.
Because he and I spent a lot of time together when Nicky was off training and doing stuff all over the world doing a training for spaceflight. And so we spent a lot of time together, and it's a father-son bond is huge.
That's
I'm so
amazing.
privileged and so honored, and he's so proud of him. But the proudest moment was that he was at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
Yeah.
Studying. I'm neurodivergent, right? He's got it too. He's picked up
The gift.
the gift. And so there he's doing aviation science, the hardest degree you can do.
Yeah.
And he comes to Nicole and I after the first year, and we always raised him, look, follow your passion.
Mm.
You're in this world to be happy. That's why God put you here. Yeah, you're not here to be, you don't have to be miserable if you don't want to be. There's
Yeah.
always a choice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he came to Nicole and I and said, Mom, Dad, I'm not enjoying college. It's not the place I need to be. I'm feeling I'm in the wrong place. I want to go become an aircraft mechanic. I want to go work with the engines directly. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And the courage it took to do that, because his mom was on the main board of trustees over there. She wasn't when he was there, but she had previously. She was an alumni from the Lemmy Riddle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm like, son, he said, Dad, no, I really want to do this. I know it's the right thing to do. And that he had the courage to do that, huge. So proud of him. And now he is so happy.
Yeah.
He goes to work every day and he comes back covered in oil and grease and he's got his thing and he's doing great and he's happy and he's doing something constructive and it's a skill and a task and a
Yeah.
trade and he loves it. But the
That's
moment of courage to follow his passion, I said, okay, as a parent, boom, we've done it. That's awesome.
yeah. 1,000%. It's something that I'm working on now. Is in Bloom. One of our core modules is around purpose, right?
Mm.
And why did we start with purpose? Because purpose gives you alignment, and there's a way to kind of quantify it. It's interesting. We say invented or this framework for purpose is 3,000 years old. It's called ikigai. It's strengths, passion. What does the world need? How do you make money? And those that kind of Venn diagram of those four things. But I think the idea of finding your purpose always felt super fluffy, but your son's example is a great, example of like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is something the world needs. I can make money at this. I really enjoy it. And that is, that is as a parent, you're like, yes, that's what I want for you. Whatever that path might look like. And the world is changing so fast. And you've got this convergence of AI, robotics, space, all of these major kind of tectonic shifts that are happening in the world. I really think that the conversation of purpose could never be more relevant than it is today. So for parents out there, I love that because it does take courage to say, yeah, I'm not going to follow the ordinary path. And that's what, and in a lot of ways, that's what entrepreneurs do. They don't follow that ordinary path. It does take courage to stand up in that. But when you have your parents' support, I feel like that matters a lot. When they say, "Hey, yeah, love that for you, and yes, go follow that dream. We're 100% behind you." Because the other way around is not fun.
No, it's not. It's not fun.
Yeah, yeah,
And I can speak, I managed to turn my family around, but I can speak a little bit from personal experience on that. It's not fun.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, having the ability to have yeah, I'm so proud of Roman. He's done such a good job.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, testament to both you and Nicole, and just kind of your ethos. So shifting away a little bit, Lone Star is launched its first or second, fourth. That tells you where I'm at, Chris. It feels like it was yesterday, but I guess it wasn't.
Yeah,
Fourth.
actually, so the fourth one was last year, and that was our second to the moon. And then our fifth goes up this October, polar orbiting around the Earth. It's about half a petabyte of storage, our first star vault, our first data vault. Amazing.
Wow. Wow. And then if you can talk about it, we started talking about customers and
Mhm.
listening to their problems. I know that, data breaches have become an increasingly, concern. What are customers thinking about? Why are they looking at Lone Star to solve their data storage needs? And then who were some of those first customers that said, "Yeah, we're with you, Chris. Let's put this in orbit because it absolutely needs to be there." By the way, if I'm not mistaken, you put the Constitution was the first space transmission from your second space mission or the moon landing. Is that right?
Both moon landings. Thank you. We sent the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and someone said, "Won't that upset the Chinese?" And I'm like, "I damn well hope so." And I became a citizen for a reason. All of us did, and shine a light in the darkness. Remind people what it is to be an American. Why America is an idea. It's not a physical location, right? Just like ancient Sparta and Athens, they were ideas. And as we talk about AI and the data, storing data and backing data up, it's still an idea. And so we love doing that. It was so much fun. And if you're gonna, if you're gonna do it, do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like that. That told me a lot about you and just kind of your ethos. I love that. Also, I met the artist who did the rendering, so I think you
Hmm.
can see it online. But
Yeah.
the profile on one side when the sun was shining on the data center was a profile of your wife, and then I believe on the other profile it was Charlie. Is that right?
Yeah. Charlie
Yeah.
Duke, Apollo 16.
Yes. Uh,
So moonwalker, spacewalker, man, woman, Artemis, Apollo. Artemis is the sister of Apollo. These next steps up. And even as we speak, Artemis just finished a wet dress rehearsal for the Artemis 2 mission. Our friends headed up to go circumnavigate the moon. First time back in 50 years.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So, what were these first early customers? What were they saying their
Well, the
needs?
ones I can talk about in public.
Yes.
Yeah, the state of Florida has been brilliant. They were on both of our lunar missions for backup.
Okay.
And since then, we can, public domain, we can talk about KIO, largest data center company in Central America. The largest in Mexico, Guatemala, Panama, Colombia, and the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Amazing partner and amazing customer. And we have others who are just, so many NDAs. But
Yeah.
those are the two that we can talk about.
Continue to talk about it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you guys, I know that when I looked at your video that Nicole narrates, which by the way is amazing. You guys talked about data centers in satellite, and then
Mhm.
eventually data centers on the moon,
In the moon.
through in the moon.
In the moon.
In the moon. Let's talk about that because the moon has been this hot topic
Mhm.
of you know, who's going to get there, who's going to get there first, who's going to make these things happen. You guys have been talking about this for at least as far as I know, before everyone else. By the way, I make a point. I was at a USF meeting and they were talking about data centers on the moon, and I made it a point to point out that Lone Star Lunar is in our backyard.
Thank you. Thank you.
And they were talking about this way before anyone else. I diverge for a moment. What's that path to get there? What's that timeline that you're thinking about, and what are the steps that it takes to get there?
Thank you. No, our next launch goes up in October from Vandenberg, polar orbiting, North Pole to South Pole around the Earth. And then those are hosted payloads, data vaults, star vaults. And we're going up on what we call proliferated LEOs all over Earth orbit, and then headed back to lunar orbit, the Earth Moon L1 Lagrange point in 2028, with much bigger vaults. And then when others are landing safely on the moon again, and we can get back, then we're going back into those lava tubes then we're going to go from petabyte to exabyte to zettabyte to yottabyte level facilities.
Chris, what is a yottabyte? How much?
Gosh. Okay, here we go. All right. So here we go. You ready for this one? Okay. So we have a megabyte. A gigabyte is 1,000 megabytes. 1,000 gigabytes is a terabyte. Some of our phones now have 1 terabyte.
Yes.
So 1,000 terabytes is called a petabyte, right?
Okay. Yeah.
1,000 petabytes is called an exabyte. 1,000 exabytes is a zettabyte. 1,000 zettabytes is a yottabyte. Now, every day, the human race today, we're creating about 702 exabytes of new data, more than yesterday, every day.
Per day.
Per day. And it's doubling every 3 months.
Wow.
And so last year, the human race created roughly 187 to 187 and a half, say roughly, zettabytes. This year, we're on track to be creating close to 400 zettabytes. And then we start getting up to yottabytes. Now, there are facilities in the world, even here at home, that carry yottabytes of data.
Wow.
It's incredible how much we're creating. It's become the currency of daily life.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we get up there to the moon, and is robotics part of the Lone Star plan?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Part of everyone's plans, actually. And that's the thing. So when you look at the moon, just, we've got Earth's largest satellite, right? And so think of it like a satellite, but also think of it like a space station. To us, it's the moon is covered in minerals. What we call down here, rare earth minerals, but they're not rare up there. They're everywhere. And so it's amazing. But think of it like a shell. And we've walked around the top of the shell. We land
Yeah.
on the shell. But once you get into these caves, the biggest blotches on the moon, the
Yeah.
seas, the mare,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they are like the New York subway, the London tube. There are thousands of tunnels, which we've mapped with radar and thermal cameras and stuff. One we're looking at is 93 kilometers long, a kilometer wide, and 80 meters deep. And it's one of 2,700 that we already know about. So when you're on the surface, you've got 2 weeks of
Yeah.
day, 2 weeks of night, hot, cold, radiation, micrometeorites. It's pretty inhospitable. But you go down into one of these little caves. It's really quite nice. Right. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. And you can do, and so
Yeah.
it's like, wow. But to get down in the caves, robotics and all that kind of good stuff. But we
Yeah.
have all of that. And this is the most amazing. We have everything we need. We're just waiting for Starship and Blue Origin to really get going. So SpaceX and Blue Origin with their new Glenn. And that's the most important thing. Here we are in the third decade of the 21st century. AI is a tool, just like a rocket engine is a tool, like fire is a tool. And a rocket engine gives us something that no one's ever had before that we know of in the whole history of our planet. And that is access to space. And that gives us access to energy and raw materials. And it takes us from scarcity to abundance. The fact that people still fight over raw materials, and it's like, that's so Dickensian, it's so baby boomer,
Mm.
right? I mean, the future is abundant because of the technologies that we have.
Yeah. You hear I think people hear that, and they hear, folks like you talk about that, and I think Elon has talked about that a little bit, the, future is abundant. But then they see their daily lives, and they don't feel that, and that future is coming. How do people draw that connect between, like, you are living in that world, you see it, you know it, it's coming. This has been, like, part of your, I guess, your daily routine, right? Like, you're thinking about these things, but most people aren't living in that world of abundance, or at least they don't feel like they are. When do you think that that chasm will shift a little bit for the everyday person, where they'll say, "You know what? Yeah, what happens up there has made an impact on me down here in a real material way." Now, I know there's tons of examples of that, but yeah,
But you still got to fight for the future.
yeah,
This isn't a done thing. You've still got to really push for it.
yeah.
And it's easy to believe the bad things. Weapons of mass distraction, weapons of mass division, media sells, if it bleeds, it leads. But we already live in a golden age for humanity,
Yeah.
right? Where the standard of living, the life expectancy, access to medicine, education, housing, clean drinking water is off the charts.
Yeah.
It's almost as good as the ancient Romans had it. Let that sink in for a minute, right? Because you lose
Yeah.
track of this stuff and you have a 2,000-year dip and we're just coming back up the other side. Right?
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
it's amazing. So just pick up the smartphone and ask it to play you a song and you have access to more music than the King of England did 20 years ago.
Yes.
Right? And that's the thing. It's already doing amazing things. And then, Gary, I'm going to have to shoot off in a second because I've got one of those
Man.
government meetings. I know. I mean, the time has gone whoosh. It's gone really quick.
Well, Chris, thank you for sharing kind of your journey on, through Lone Star Lunar, but really just kind of everything that got you there. They always say looking backwards, you can see the dots. I definitely can see that. Also, God puts you in positions to influence regions, people. You have definitely done that for me. You keep an inspiration. My daughter got to meet your wife, and I absolutely love that because I talk about what's going on in space, and we talk about going to the moon, and it's
Absolutely.
all
Yes.
because of the work that you guys are doing.
You're very
So I
kind.
look
Thank
up
you.
and I see friends.
Yes.
I see friends up there. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that journey with our audience, and I hope to see you in the future
Hope to see you soon.
somewhere
Gary,
remote.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.